Welcome back, Stars Gang. I think it's time we talk about it, but first things first, if you didn't know already, Resident Evil 4 has dropped its latest update expansion, Separate Ways, and it's absolutely perfect. But before we go into details, be sure to drop a like and subscribe if you're new to the channel, and check out my previous review I talked about Resident Evil 3 on. Now back to it. As we all should know, if we played the original RE4 Classic, this was in the original one, which portrayed a dynamic of the game from Ada's point of view, which as you begin playing, you begin seeing Ada pretty much as if she was Leon's guardian angel throughout the Leon campaign. I can already hear the angry Leon stands talking about Leon can totally beat everything on his own. I love Leon. Ashley's so stupid and Ada broke his heart. But this isn't about that, unfortunately. Ada truly did play a significant role in Separate Ways, and today I will be talking about my experience with the DLC and why I feel Separate Ways DLC was absolutely perfect. First things first, I like how compared to the original version, it didn't feel out of character for Ada and Luis to both be captured, and it showed a bit of Luis's flair with him dancing as if he was carefree and knew he was capable of escaping, while Ada was disguised as one of the guards, which was pretty awesome to see her be able to bypass as one of the Plagas. The effect of this to put emphasis on not only Ada's stealth capabilities, but Luis's flair and ability to remain calm. You don't really see often Luis's experience with them outside of his charming character. Next, we encounter one of Salazar's pawns. I don't know what you want to call them, but that's pretty much what we know them as. This fight was pretty interesting because the reach of the black robe is insane. As someone who's been playing a lot of Resident Evil, the only boss I've really ever fought that had that amount of reach was Nemesis. This threw me off entirely. There's two phases to this fight. Leading to the second phase, he begins to do a shadow clone jutsu bullshit, and you have to find out which one is pretty much the real one. The RNG for this mode is absolutely astounding. Now for you noobs who don't know what RNG is, it's a 3-letter acronym for random number generator. Majority of the Resident Evil franchise is based on this denominator, which determines the luck of your runs. Usually the better your RNG, the better your damage, items, and difficulty will be. This takes into effect in this fight because you don't know if you have the proper RNG that'll better your damage, better your items, or you don't know if the proper clone will always spawn properly. So when you see the black robe with the glowing eyes, you know you hit the proper one. One thing I loved about this was at times you couldn't even see which one it was. So if you hit the wrong one on professional mode, RP to the pro speedrunners. After defeating him, we then proceed to taking it further outside the castle after Ada has her flashbacks and hot flashes, whatever you want to call them. Navigating outside the castle, we then discover the utility of the grapple hook. Now that we have made it past the guards, catapult to be sending the freaking spiciest of meatballs and do some pretty annoying knockbacks. You can either use the cannon itself to dismantle them if you feel they're annoying, or you can pretty much just stream past them if you feel like you don't want to deal with them or if you feel confident enough. We then clear the first chapter. Fairly simple, right? We move on to the next chapter where we now navigate through the wooden platforms where there's blue medallions, which is quite awesome for the game to have implemented with Ada's side, considering she takes another route than Leon and acts as a guardian angel. While she pretty much navigates this like Catwoman, we make it pretty much far into the puzzle where we see a bit of a variation of perspective to be able to solve, but once you figure it out, it was quite nice. We then make way to the church, which is honestly amazing because the way they changed it up entirely. One little Easter egg I did kind of like was in the remake is if you grapple hook towards the roof, you could hear near the nest where the sounds of Ashley isolated in the room are pretty much going off. So while you're at the church looking for Luis, you get a bit of insight towards what the game's getting into. Ada begins to ring the church bell in a much different way than in the classic, and then voila, all the zombies go into a trance and they start moving like they're in Thriller and shit. I did think it was cool that you can run past them and they do nothing because they were pretty much so possessed. What was really amazing was Ada's weapon choice and what she was capable of doing with the treasures and upgrades with the merchant to make her weapon stronger. There really wasn't any limits. Moving forward back into the village, Ada then re-encounters the black robe, which to my surprise felt like a different dimension due to the aura of her infection lingering within the fight, giving us insight into why Ada was present. This fight was pretty much a repetition of the first, which I understand. Nobody is a fan of multiple phase fights in Resident Evil. After this, we begin to make our way towards the house where we pop Mendez's top off like a soda cap. We then sneak into the window like a rebel-ass teenager trying to sneak into the room after being out. We then find more documents to where Leon's next location will be. Then we begin to run back into Mendez, where this Michael Myers walking motherfucker decides to chase us back to the merchant. We then begin on the hunt for Luis, which amazingly enough, we then see Ada's iris ability activate, which I thought was quite impressive. Bitch had this Spy Kids ability where she could just see her target's previous trails. We then run into the zombie, which leaves an accomplishment for extra pesetas, where we can basically sell Leon's recovered jacket. Oh, gold digging ass bitch. In this trail, it leads us to Luis. We then recover Luis's footsteps, leading to a room in which he hasn't even been in this location they led to, but didn't lead outwards. Anyways, I'm not even gonna talk about this. Anyways, we found this badass dude's frequency on the back of a cigarette box, and we backtrack to the steam room where we encounter the chainsaw woman. This was actually fun to fight and basically move on from. We then find ourselves back in the village where the villagers remain after the building has collapsed. We run and make our boring ass way to the house where Luis had encounter with the Gigante. This fight was immensely easy, mainly due to the fact that you could easily just abuse the grapple hook system. If you had god tier aim, you could easily just shoot the Plaga, or if you were insane with your collector skills, you could sell all your jewelry and pretty much purchase a rocket and just end this guy in one shot if you're not a fan of trivial two-phase form fights. Once you kill the Gigante, we reunite with our loved savior Luis, in which we have an interesting discussion between the two, where we're having a discussion to get the amber. Basically, the dumbass shit we discussed in the jail room. Luis tries to sweet talk before catching a bullet to the dome. This is where Luis speaks on his relationship and assistance he's provided with Leon, and also explaining to Ada that she's already infected, which puts Ada in a predicament where the odds are now in Luis's hands. Luis runs like a stupid bitch because he sees that the lab was destroyed. We then have to chase after him like a teenage kid who hates their parents. Ada low-key humbles Luis and insists that we can make another suppressant, which is pretty cool considering we now have Ada being some type of form of an optimist. Bro then has the audacity to give us a shopping list and ask us to fetch the fucking red ink, gold bottle, and the blue butterfly. You would think this task is simple, but it pretty much becomes an annoying headache. We make our way grappling hooking into the next section where we find a puzzle for the door, very similar to the way that the RE4 story was when Leon goes the opposite direction. He uses the tablets to access the door, but this is in a new form, which is quite cool considering the door is backwards from where Leon enters. The puzzle for this room wasn't too difficult, which I was a bit upset about. Anyways, we retrieve the ink and move on to the next ingredient. It was fairly interesting on both to kind of see the golden bottle and the way that we navigate through the house of armor, I'd like to call it, where we experience a different dynamic of what Leon is faced with in the gladiator pit with Ashley. I enjoyed this section. Once you fight the ensemble, you progress, you pretty much be able to keep the bottle, which I like the puzzles that they had with the bottles where you had to kind of swap them in and out to be able to navigate through different rooms. But then we now navigate to the part of the journey for the blue butterfly. This part was probably the most annoying because of all the navigation. We basically have to kill the master of the Plagas. You can choose to zoom in and snipe the dude pretty much off rip, or you can basically choose to get up close and personal. Once you manage to kill him, you're both on your path to the next ingredient. Ada pretty much has this weird ass discussion with Wesker's corny ass, calling my boy Leon a dog.
As long as you can keep your dog under control.
Dog telling her, yo bitch ass better not cry if your dog bites. So like the sneaky link she is, she hits up Leon to warn about Ashley's whereabouts. So we then head to where in the room, it's sick to see the iris ability be used by Ada to look at the notes and read about the trail Luis would pretty much walk. We then solve the puzzle, retrieve the list of ingredients fully. We then meet up with Luis where Ada gets her fix. Then the virus becomes suppressed. Ada starts to begin to feel the side effects of that lean, and then we see her true spy skills come out. She has that maximum fucking manhunt, stealth, absolutely undetectable mode going on. We begin making the way through the sewers, where down here we fight a mixture of zombies and water bugs. Spoiler alert, you can shortcut through most of this by throwing a grenade through the gate to make the freaking lock break on the other side to where you can access the water lever. But if you like an adventure, you can most certainly go the other way. Once we navigate through this, we pretty much encounter the Captain Blackrobe, who then gets exposed as Salazar's peasants. This fight was probably the most annoying fucking fight throughout the game, due to the fact that this fucker legit has two phases. The first being where this guy has the most fucking incredible fucking reach, swiftness, and zone techniques bigger than fucking Captain Cold from Injustice. Once you do enough damage to him, you go into the second phase where his weaker spot is the rest of his body, but once you got it weak enough, bam, it was a classical defeat. We then begin to see Ada throw up the parasite. She contacts Luis and we pretty much make our way through the mines into a cart leading towards the clock tower. We then see the fight with Leon and Salazar where Krauser takes Ashley and Leon just pops a couple caps in Salazar's ass. We then chase Krauser towards the little boat, or the little yachty, whatever you want to call it. We then ride in the boat where Leon and Ada have the talk, where Leon has a Marvin's Room moment with Ada. But then we get to see Krauser give away the amber to Sadler during Ada's sniping session, where we get a glizzy to the back of the head by Wesker, but you know, plot armor doesn't stop us, you know what I'm saying? We ain't taking no bullet from Wesker. We then make it to the battlefield region where we get the Matrix beams. But this part pretty much wasn't as trivial as I thought it would be, but I guess it's pretty difficult in a sense of navigation. We now enter the lab where we run into the monster after using Iris to surpass the door, so we can see the fingerprints and see pretty much how the gate was basically able to open up based on what was pressed and hard towards the least pressed. We then got to play Temple Run, we get into the monitoring room, but before we make it there, we had to hit some Mission Impossible music, you know what I'm saying, through the lasers. We then got to the main terminal, set the bombs to blow up the entire island. Ada decides to be on some crazy shit and inserts a USB executing her own malicious plan. We then re-encountered with this fucking big ass monster in a bigger laser room but at a higher scale, where we execute the Britney Spears toxic theme and turn this zombie beast into a checkerboard. But now here's where we put on the superhero cape and find Leon. We then run into Sadler and Leon once again, saving Leon's goofy ass and fighting this weird motherfucker's hentai arms and knock him out retrieving the amber. We then try to escape, but you know, we get hog-tied and from a pretty insane height. I don't know how any of this logically makes sense, but Leon just shoots the rope and her legs just fucking don't snap, they don't bend, they don't do nothing. Bitch out here looking like a fucking Caleb City meme when he got knocked out. Ada then somehow gains some immense wake-up power from the gods and saves Leon's ass yet again, which I think is pretty badass, but very cliche. Now this motherfucker gets extremely mad and somehow transforms into his final form. We make our way up to the high point of the map to assist Leon in the fight. Anyways, we have to make it through this rigorous trial of enemies with rocket launchers and hella various weapons, which I can give Capcom props, because this can be a very difficult part to be able to navigate through in higher difficulties due to the fact of the swarm and how fast the reactions of the zombies were, especially when we're trying to navigate through the grapple points. Once we receive the almighty red rocket, we make it to the highest point where the crane is next to Sadler's final form. But of course, Ashley's useless ass just up here chilling, asking for help.
Leon needs help! Hurry!
We then hand Leon the rocket, and the job is finished for Ada. Typical, cliche, heroic ending, but highly worthy gameplay. Leon just got to stop saying this fucking cringy ass shit.
I'll give you a holy body.
Then we have the final clip where Ada decides to give her own agenda of things. I did like Ada's role within the DLC. It was very insightful to a lot of her backstory before RE6. The DLC was well worth, and from majority of my RE4 fans out there, many of them felt the DLC was impressive, but they didn't like the depiction of Ada's infection. But all in all, I believe Capcom is on the right track with providing us content that we expected to see. The graphics and overall appeal of what Wesker contained was pretty amazing to see, and it honestly only hypes me up for RE5, which is personally going to be the greatest co-op Resident Evil of all time. So for my review, I would give this DLC a 9.5 out of 10. Well executed and minor tweaks that could have been adjusted. The biggest thing I liked was the immense weapon selection and versatile playstyles that you could do. The story was very well tailored into pretty much the main story, which kept things very identical towards its classical version. The RNG definitely makes things very interesting because the more items spawn, the more it wasn't repetitive, the more times that you basically had went through the playthroughs. So every playthrough never really felt the same in terms of your RNG with items, thus changing the odds for multiple runs. But all in all, totally worth the money. Tell me what you guys thought of the DLC. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Did you feel that it needed a bit more? Let's talk about it in the comments. And if you've made it far in this video, I appreciate your support. And it'd be important that if you basically support this video and you like this video, to make sure that you share it so that others can also show it some appreciation as well. But until next time, my stars member, thank you for watching. Stay healthy, stay hydrated, and I hope to catch you all in my next video. Peace.